Well, good morning, everyone. Uh, this is Steve Stelzer here, and I've got my presentation ready to go. And it's 10 o'clock. We'll give another minute or two for people trying to. Have you ever tried to get on to one of these online presentations? And you've got it on your calendar, and you're going to partake. And it's about that time. Let's go ahead and get on. And then you have the IT moment. I think it happens about a quarter of the time to me. I mean, it just cracks me up. Okay, let's go. Yeah, all right. Boom. Oh, what's going on here? Wait, why is this not working? I've been on 10 other ones this week, and this one's not working. So, yeah, we'll try to give people a couple of moments to take care of an IT moment. Anyway, I'm here at the Permitting Center in the Green Building Resource Center, and been really working on the energy code lately and training our people in building code enforcement. So building code enforcement has opted to improve the way we review COMchecks. So here we are, and we'll start outlining it for people. And we're recording this so that we can actually have anyone else download this and watch it online. And it won't be live, of course, when they do that, but they'll be able to see what you're seeing now. So if you have any colleagues or anybody that you feel would benefit from seeing this, it is going to be available on the Permitting Center website. And I don't have a slide on that link, but we will make that happen. I think we can put it in the chat or the Q&A before the end of the presentation, and make that available to people. All right, well, got 10:02, so let's go ahead and get started. We're talking about the current code here, 2015 IECC International Energy Conservation Code, and it's COMcheck workshop. So just a quick bit of history. The origin of the codes basically started appearing in the 1600s. I love this. Boston prohibited chimneys made from wood in 1630. Isn't that great? What an idea. Then we have the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers, which was founded in 1894. I didn't really know we had air conditioning at the time, and they probably had perhaps a different name in 1894, but at any rate, the big one came out, Standard 90, in 1975. And then the first model code for energy conservation came out in 1981, and 30 years ago. There you go. But who's counting? And in the local ordinance situation, Texas adopts International Energy Conservation Code 2015 as state law in 2016. Okay, so we've had this in effect for a few years. Local jurisdictions are responsible for energy code implementation and enforcement of this law, and Houston adopted it as well in 2016. And then building code enforcement enforces the City of Houston construction codes for both residential and commercial construction. We're talking about commercial today. So why are we here? Beginning January 1st, in a few months, plans submitted with incomplete COMcheck reports will be rejected at pre-screen by our permit techs as they review for the completeness of the plan submittals before sending the plan review. Pre-screen is looking for quantity, not quality. If you have enough quantity, then plan reviewers will judge the quality of the reports. So disclosure here, this class is to inform you about COMcheck reports and how Houston Plan Review will review them. It is not about how to completely navigate COMcheck. And the good thing is informing about COMcheck will inform you about the Commercial Energy Code somewhat. And this is not about teaching you the entire Energy Code, but you might learn something you don't already know. So why we're here again, we enforce the City of Houston construction codes, and training is necessary for that. So for a comprehensive plan review, all code requirements should be incorporated in the design and construction documents. This is coming from the commentary of the code. All of the project information, including specifications, scope calculations, and detailed drawings, should be submitted, ... so that code compliance can be verified. So that's kind of the process. So we, in an effort to be clear with everyone, a statement on the construction documents such as all insulation levels shall comply with the 2015 edition of the IECC. Okay, so let's just make a note, say, hey, builders, looking at the plans, everything is going to comply with the code. Nope, not an acceptable substitute for showing the required information in the plans, okay? In fact, a certification on the COMcheck documents with a designer's seal is also not an acceptable substitute for completing the inspection checklist. So real quick, the structure of the commercial provisions, there's 6 chapters, although the 6th one, reference standards, is, you know, yeah, it's a chapter, but not much information there for you. Basically, it's 5 chapters of information. So chapter 1 is very clear that certain information is to be included on the construction documents. They have a list of 12 items, and of course we may need more, but these 12 items are required by the code to be included in the drawings. And it's not the least bit unclear. And so they're to be delineated, and delineation includes stating why they do not apply due to an exception or exemption from the code provisions. And we'll explain that more clearly. These 12 requirements are indicated in COMcheck. So COMcheck is very helpful for making sure that those items are included in the documents which the code requires. So let me repeat. Delineation includes stating why the requirements do not apply to your project due to an exception or an exemption from the code provisions. And people will want to use exceptions and exemptions. All right, right after that, the code requires the building thermal envelope depiction, and quite simply says it shall be represented on the construction drawings. It's not the least bit unclear. The depiction is required, and come January 1st, we're going to be rejecting them until they show compliance. So this little sketch is kind of residential. Yes, this is required in both residential and commercial codes. So that's the expectation here. Oh, wait. You people have never rejected me for that before. Why are you suddenly doing it now? This is not fair. Well, okay. Let's just think of this as a grace period you've had since 2016. And sigh, it's coming to an end. Okay. From the top to plan review. Here inside. Enforcing the law. You do not need permission or direction from your supervisor to enforce the building codes. That's what you were hired to do. And our people will be getting trained between now and January 1st thoroughly on this particular subject. So moving forward, the Commercial Energy Code, we want to understand the code. We want to understand COMcheck. and then we want to enforce the code with the result that buildings are built to perform as they should. Okay. Chapter 3 shows us how climate zones affect the code. So here's the map of the US, and you can see climate zones 1 through 7, and then you kind of don't see, because they don't have a map of Alaska, climate zone 8. Okay, so basically we have Texas pretty visible here, with actually 3 climate zones, but Houston down on the coast is in climate zone 2. Okay, so then when you go through the various listings, they have the state listing and the county listings, and we can clearly see that Harris County is in climate zone 2A. So moving forward, this is very important. Many energy code provisions are specific to the climate zone. Okay, and many energy code provisions have exceptions and exemptions based on the climate zone. So we want to tune into these. It can have a benefit for doing less work. At any rate, the main body of the code is Chapter 4. And there are, this shows the 3 pathways and the fact that all 3 of them have mandatory requirements. So the top right, ASHRAE 90.1 is an energy standard, and COMcheck has an ASHRAE version. Then the prescriptive provisions in the code is the middle one, and that has a COMcheck. That's the kind of the normal COMcheck. And then there's a third pathway, which is a complicated energy modeling software, and probably only about 5% of projects in the city in building code enforcement use the approved energy modeling software. Okay, so we're here to talk about COMcheck. This is what the code provision looks like. Oh, how boring. But there it is, 1, 2, and 3. Those are the 3 pathways we just talked about. Okay, now what we need to understand is we pick only one approach. So for people using COMcheck, we have the IECC version and we have the ASHRAE version. Okay, and that will be evident in the reports which version you went. Okay, provisions within the pathways are not interchangeable, but you'd be surprised how similar there are. Okay, but at any rate, there are some slight differences. They're not interchangeable. Applicant must make a choice and take it all the way through, either in ASHRAE or IECC. And like we saw in that diagram, all 3 pathways have mandatory requirements which are not tradable. Okay, COMcheck can do some trading, and some things though are not, and the mandatory items are not. So this is what you know, kind of the story is in the ASHRAE publication. Just, you know, there's a little visual showing how things work there, not super important. Now here is our commercial checklist for permit application. Okay, this is basically on the right. I've got, you know, which is kind of hard to read, is the checklist, and then I've got a blow up here that kind of, you know, goes over part of it. But our permit techs are using the checklist as our pre-screen. Okay, so this is what we're talking about at pre-screen. And you can see energy code software is required for building projects, and where proposed scope of work is exempt, indicate on the plans why exempt. So you are already having your plans rejected if COMcheck is missing. All right, everybody on board? That's already happening. You got to have a COMcheck. So what we have kind of been, you've been in a grace period about, is indicating on the plans where proposed scope of work is exempt. So, but that is required. It is in there, and come January 1st, it's going to be a major issue. Okay, so now let's talk about briefly here project docs. Okay, where does the COMcheck belong? Okay, so on the right, you can see your screen version of trying to put stuff into project docs, and then blown up on the left, you can see up in the very top part of documents, pretty much right away, we have forms. And then when you click forms, there is a folder called energy forms codes. Okay, everybody see that? That's where we expect the COMcheck to be. Okay, so blow up. Place the COMcheck in the energy forms codes folder in project docs. This is where it will be reviewed in pre-screen. I've highlighted that in yellow. And I'm just reading to kind of like make a presentation here. Hopefully you're not being insulted. Now, what I did find out is that some drawings, some plan sets have had the COMcheck put on some of the drawing pages, okay? That's fine. But make sure the COMcheck is in the folder, okay? So you can have it in the drawings, which actually we're happy that you have them in the drawings. That's great. Maybe that'll facilitate people on the construction site looking at them. I don't know. But for pre-screen purposes, we definitely need them in the energy forms folder. The permit techs are not going through the drawings, okay? So they aren't going to see them in the drawings. And so heads up, all right? So let's start with the building envelope requirements part of the code. And quite simply, just give you a brief overview. Building envelope requirements are walls, roofs, windows, and leakage, okay? That's what we're concerned about in the energy code. All right, this is one of the tables in the code showing R value for insulation for the various components: roof, walls below grade, floors, slabs on grade floors, and whatever's on the bottom there that I can't even read. And then you can see the climate zones run along the top. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 8 along the top. See that? And then for instances, on roofs, I've circled insulation entirely above roof deck, for instance, okay? And you can see where it intersects under climate zone 2. We need R25 CI for group R and all other occupancies, okay? All right, so that's kind of an indication for you of climate zone and the various different requirements per climate zone. So you can kind of look around in here and see there's different numbers in the different concerns in the different climate zones. All right. Then this slide indicates kind of the first provision where there's an exemption, all right? So low energy buildings are allowed to be exempt from the building thermal envelope provisions. So we were just talking about, for instance, the roof insulation. You would be exempt from that if the energy usage is less than 3 BTU-hours per square foot or 1 watt per square foot, okay? And you don't have to worry about insulation on the walls and the roofs for number 2, those that do not contain conditioned space. So you've got a carport. No, you don't need to insulate your roof for a carport. It's wide open to the atmosphere, okay? And then greenhouses, okay? We're not, typically, greenhouses don't use any conditioned space. They're just kind of protecting the plants. So those are allowed to be exempt, all right? Now here's another one, equipment buildings, and they, if you meet all 5 of those provisions, then you are exempt from building thermal envelope provisions as well. So reminder on the left, if you want to claim an exemption, you must state it in your COMcheck submittal. Okay, so that's what we're going to be looking for. You find the exemption and you state it, and then we're going to be happier. So let's just look at, here's some of the items in the code that you would need to show on your plans. Eyes glaze over. Okay, nobody really wants to be dealing with that, do they? Then it gets worse. Here are some other components and equations, and this is not my idea of fun, okay? So this is why you want COMcheck. You plug these numbers and values into the COMcheck, and it's a win-win. You want it, and so do we. All right, the International Code Council likes COMcheck. Free and easy to use software program. Did I mention free? Yes. Code official must approve the use of specific computer software such as COMcheck. Yeah, not only do we approve it, we require it. The user inputs building areas, efficiencies, and other specifications for the building envelope, mechanical systems, and interior and exterior lighting systems, okay? And it generates a compliance report for the approved plans and a customized field inspection checklist. And it's available for ASHRAE and IECC and some states, not Texas, where they've worked with COMcheck to come up with a particular state version, okay? But we haven't done that. Okay, so let's start looking at one. Here is the compliance certificate. There are 4 types, okay? But first, time out. Some info from the U.S. Department of Energy, who really helped with this COMcheck development. The designer inputs into COMcheck from the plans. Okay, so contrapositively, that means if we see a COMcheck item with nothing in the plans, something is wrong. Okay, fair warning. This is what COMcheck looks like when someone is inputting the info from the plans. Okay, so you see these components. You know, up at the top, sort of, you see project, envelope, interior lighting, exterior lighting, and mechanical. So this scene, they're in the envelope, and they've got roof, skylight, exterior wall, window, door, basement, floor, and they have to input area, square footage, construction details, what the assembly, they pick an assembly, and what have you. So you're inputting things from the plans into this program, and it's quite complex, okay? So this is what it looks like. All right, now back to COMcheck. So this is the first of 5 COMcheck reports, envelope compliance. So right off the bat, the energy code gets entered right away. This is 2015 IECC. It could also be ASHRAE. The climate zone, see that? Thumbs up, 2A. Also top right, we're gonna double check the version. So if you're in version 4 at this point in time, you're good. And then asterisk down at the bottom, a tenant build out may not have any envelope items, okay? So again, this is the first of 5. Then the second of 5 is interior lighting. Very clear up at the top, interior lighting compliance certificate. Third of 5, exterior lighting. So they've got a pretty similar format, as you can see. Fourth of 5, mechanical. Okay, and then finally, 5th of 5 is the inspection checklist, which is what we're going to be talking about at length. Okay, nothing new with the code, nothing new with COMcheck. Plan review will be reviewing them differently is what is new. Okay, so we've not pulled any fast ones. So let's walk through some COMchecks. You'll see what the report looks like and what plan review will be looking for. Okay. So here we go. This is this is envelope compliance. And so let's start off with roof. The assembly is, that's what comes out of COMcheck, okay? So we check the square footage, and then right off the bat over on the right, the continuous R value is 20, rejected, okay? Right off the bat, in the envelope compliance report, COMcheck shows us a roof R value that does not comply. Rejection number 1. So then next is the 3-year aged solar reflectance index of 64 is required. And there's nothing in that blurb right there about that. So we have to look somewhere else. So we go to the checklist. And so on the left column of the checklist is the provision, which COMcheck does. You do not have to type that in. Then next to it is the complies, kind of the check boxes. Well, that COMcheck, the user does not do that. COMcheck thinks that's for plan review or inspections. Over on the right are the comments, and the user inputs the SRI and references the drawings here, okay? Which you can see the blow up is where I've input that note, and the full scale on the right, there was nothing, okay? So on this particular project, I went to the drawings, and so you can see the kind of a roof plan on the right-hand side, and there's a note, and I've blown that up and put it up top. And so it says the note 21 says Duralast single ply roof membrane over minimum R20 rigid insulation board, blah, blah, blah. Nothing about the SRI, okay? Is MIA, missing in action. So I went to the internet, pulled down the Duralast information, and lo and behold, there's some solar reflectance index information. That would have been good to have been submitted, okay? So here we go. Envelope compliance failure. COMcheck asserts the roof complies with the code, but the plans don't show compliance. The plans call for a Duralast roof. Duralast has 3 types of roof membrane and 4 colors. The roof color is not mentioned. The SRI is not mentioned. The SRI depends on the roof color. Is it the plan reviewer's job to pull the manufacturer's cut sheet from the internet to determine code compliance? Cut to that chase, no. It is the applicant's job to show compliance on the plans. All right, so here's the inspection checklist. Let's kind of take a look at what COMcheck expects. Up at the top, there is this blurb that I've blown up down at the bottom. Requirements. 0.0% were addressed directly in the COMcheck software. Text in the comments assumption column is provided by the user in the COMcheck requirements screen. For each requirement, the user certifies that a code requirement will be met and how that is documented. I've highlighted that in yellow, and how that is documented, or that an exception is being claimed. Okay, notice, or the exception is being claimed. Where compliance is itemized in a separate table, a reference to that table is provided. So you could provide something at the end of the COMcheck, and you could refer to that in the comment and assumption column, okay? Okay, so when we look at that blurb up top on the report, and it has 0.0%, that means no comments were input in the COMcheck, which is a pretty low effort task, okay? This is going to be an automatic rejection by the permit tech in pre-screen. 0, rejected. Adios. All right, so let's take a look. There's about, what, 6 to 7 pages or so of the COMcheck inspection checklist, okay? Multiple pages that address envelope, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and commissioning, okay? Very helpful, very good. So if you don't complete the comments in the inspection checklist, then prepare to see this rejection comment. A completed inspection checklist is a required component of the COMcheck submission, which is required for a building permit. For each inspection checklist item, the applicant explains how the requirement will be met with how it is documented in the plans, or which exception is being claimed, okay? Got a choice of 2. Pick one and put it in there. All right, we just so you know, we've done this, updated the residential checklist for single family. That energy report inspection checklist is required, and we will be updating the commercial as well. Okay, so now that was envelope that we already went over. Now we're going to get into building mechanical systems, okay, which is 5 parts: general, economizers, HVAC, hydronic and multi-zone equipment, and refrigeration equipment, okay? So this is what one of the first provisions are regarding that, and that is design loads that need to be determined in accordance with another ASHRAE standard, 183. And so let's look at the mechanical compliance certificate. Again, the energy code for this one was 2015 IECC. It could be ASHRAE. And so there's some mechanical systems here. I've blown it up on this slide. And you see that they are for heating and cooling. We have a capacity of 150,000 BTUHs with a proposed efficiency, blah, blah, blah. So this is indicating somewhat of capacities regarding the building loads. All right, so then we go to the inspection checklist, and we see that part of the code that on the left that COMcheck puts in. HVAC systems and equipment capacity does not exceed calculated loads. Okay, so it was blank, but this is where the user would put the page number where the load calcs are shown, or potentially following the COMcheck. Okay, the loads could be in, you know, just tabular form or something, you know, whatever the engineer used. All right. So back to this chapter 1 item. I'm going to be referring to this a few times. These 12 items are required by law to be clearly delineated. Okay. And there you go. Item 4, mechanical system design criteria. Okay. That's what the loads are, right? So are we going to double check your loads? Well, let me say this. We are expecting you to professionally establish the loads. We expect to see information on the plans to comply with the law. And is that enough of an answer? So here's another one, pumps. Pumps that circulate water between a heater and a storage tank have controls that limit operations from startup to less than or equal to 5 minutes after end of heating cycle. Okay, so that's a code provision that I didn't show you, but it's in the code. And that's how COMcheck deals with it. And on this particular inspection checklist, we got exception, requirement does not apply. Well, bad news. There's no exceptions in this code provision. So I can't even believe that was there. Anyway, then for this particular project, guess what? There's a heater and a storage tank in the plans. So how did that happen? Requirement does not apply. So that is bogus. So this one's going to get rejected for that. So let's kind of keep going through examples so you can see what we're talking about. Heated water supply piping conforms to pipe length and volume requirements. Refer to section details, says the COMcheck on the left. So we have a note, exception, requirement does not apply. COMcheck does that. They have this exception, you know, throwdown that you can put in there, and that is not sufficient. Okay, what we're asking is which exemption. So you're going to need to type that in there. You want an exemption? Type it in. Which exemption it is. Now, next on the after that is location on plans / spec, M1.0 mechanical specs and M2.0 schedules and layout. That's a good comment. Okay, don't have a problem with that. The reviewer will now go to sheet M1.0 and M2.0, and they're going to look at that. And they're going to see if there is some sort of notation about the heated water supply piping, okay? There's going to be, the engineer is going to have something that's going to convey that this project complies with that part of the code. That's what they do. Now, meanwhile, for some reason, there was 2 of these items. As you can see, they're duplications. And on the second one, it says requirement will be met. Okay, COMcheck does this, and FYI, it is not sufficient. That is not going to cut it. Okay, so here's a really interesting inspection checklist that we had, and it has 100% were addressed directly in the COMcheck software. Pre-screen is going to go good to go. Okay, they're not going to reject this COMcheck. We have an inspection checklist, and it shows 100% were addressed in the COMcheck. Now, if you were to do this requirement will be met thing, then the plan reviewer is going to bounce you. Okay, it's not sufficient. That is not indicating where on the drawings this is showing compliance. Okay, and requirement will be met is an assertion where you need to actually show the compliance. So this is a perfect opportunity to fill in the comments to show compliance. All right, so repeat, requirement will be met is not sufficient. You need to type something else in. That is not going to fly. All right, so let's, anatomy of a failure, let's take a look at some of these. Here's the one about the load calcs. Requirement will be met. Nothing else, rejected. My suggestion, note which sheet has the load calcs or note their location after the COMcheck in the energy forms folder, okay? Here's the interior lighting power calculations, blah, blah, blah. Requirement will be met. Nothing else? Fail. Suggestion, note which sheets have the electrical info, okay? All right, C406, the additional energy efficiency package options. Requirement will be met. We're not buying it. Nothing else? Rejected. Suggestion, note which sheets have this info. Okay. All right, pumps that circulate water between a heater and a storage tank. We've gone over that already. Requirement does not apply. Nothing else? Rejected. State the specific exception or exemption in your comment if you're going to go that route. All right, so one of the things that you see on these lists are things like that are a little bit diversionary. Plumbing, rough-in inspection. Okay, guess what? This is now also plan review, not just inspection. So we need everybody to hopefully retain this idea that it's called an inspection checklist, but it's also now by the City of Houston a plan review checklist as well. Okay, everybody on board? So heated water supply piping conforms to pipe length and volume. I mean, some people might not even have had to explain this before, okay? You're going to have to now. We need to see that you have complied with the provision. How can you succinctly indicate that, okay? So requirement will be met is not going to get it. And I would, you know, if I was an engineer, I would have a standard note and I would put it on my note sheets or something. And then in COMcheck, I would put the location for that note in the plans. And then our plan reviewer will look there and double check. To be clear, our inspectors have been and will continue to inspect the project to compare with the approved plans. So it is going to be used as an inspection checklist. The completed COMcheck, which is based on the plans, will be part of the approved plans. An incomplete COMcheck will not be approved, nor will the plans until the COMcheck is approved. Okay, so COMcheck is going to hold you up. Let's take a look at a kitchen exhaust hood from the drawings. Pretty entertaining. So there's kind of that story. There's like a cut-through view of it, blah, blah. So this one had the model number and exhaust CFM and supply CFM, etc. In the provision, it says replacement air introduced directly into the exhaust hood cavity shall not be greater than 10% of the hood's exhaust airflow rate. So back the napkin here, exhaust CFM 1170, supply CFM 900, looks like 77% of exhaust. That's way more than 10%. And then for more, I went to the internet because for some reason it wasn't submitted, the model, and it's shown to be exhaust only. So total fail. Go to the COMcheck inspection checklist, and this engineer, this is hilarious, went ahead and printed out the reports so that he could put hand X'd, checkbox, and that's not the intention of COMcheck anyway. Didn't type in anything, and this is where we would need a commentary clearly articulating compliance with the code section as the unit is labeled exhaust only and the drawings indicate excessive supply. So that is going nowhere. Here's another quick one, just looking at provisions and stuff. Duct and plenum insulation, we need R6 insulation, etc. And so we would look on the inspection checklist, find that provision about the insulation of ducts and plenums, and etc. As you can see, no comment. Okay, so duct insulation levels are not mentioned here or on the plan, so that would be a rejection. In spite of the engineer saying it complies, okay? The fact that you say it complies or whatever will be met is not going to get it. All right, back to this, the 12 items. Look at that. Duct sealing, duct and pipe insulation, and location required on the drawings. All right. Here's another one that's really getting into the weeds. Motor nameplate horsepower. It says right in the provision to be indicated on the construction documents. Okay, nothing ambiguous about that. Why? Total fan system motor nameplate horsepower. In the commentary, it says these calculations are typically completed by the mechanical engineer of record and should be verified during the plan review. Okay, So we need this. We need this to do our job. All right, now let's look at refrigeration equipment. Refrigeration equipment shall have an energy use in kilowatt hours per day not greater than the values of this table here. Okay, so at the risk of getting in the weeds with that, here's a submittal that was with a fast food restaurant. Manitowoc is the manufacturer, and they had I think it was a 3-page or 4-page submittal, which was put into project docs. Completely absent from this sheet was anything about kilowatt hours per day. Completely absent. So that is a fail. I can't believe that a manufacturer would actually do that. Go to the plans, and there's something in the mechanical drawings about refrigeration, but this is more like about refrigerant and a Freon leak detection system, and not a word about the refrigeration equipment kilowatt hours per day. Completely absent. So adios, this is a goner. Oh, how could we possibly detect that something's wrong? There's the freezer and there's the cooler on the plan, okay? All right, so then to really go on, this walk-in cooler, freezer, refrigerator, here's 2 of the provisions. Here's 3 through 5, okay, with a couple of them being the R value of the walls and the floors. And back to the information sheet, it does actually capture the R values of the walls and the floors. Yay! As we keep going, 9 here, anti-sweat heaters need to be no more than 7.1 watts per square foot. The handout has this, does show compliance with that. Hooray! Then finally we get down to the 11th and last provision. So the health submittal sheet addressed 3 out of the 11 requirements. Is that sufficient to indicate compliance? Absolutely not. That's a fail. Go to the inspection checklist for where they could have, indicated something, and the engineer said it complies. Oh my gosh. Now, sadly, this is actually not there. So it was saying something else complies. The economizer. Sorry. The inspection report actually skips those part of the provisions, okay? So, bad news. Wow, COMcheck doesn't seem to have an inspection checklist item for the coolers and freezers. Uh-oh. Unfortunately, you or someone will have to make up for that. They must be shown to comply with the law. If the mechanical consultant somehow doesn't do coolers or freezers, the project will not be approved until someone does. So, oops. Now, you could actually put that, you could inject that into COMcheck. So here's this one about the load calcs, right? How about adding a note about the refrigeration equipment? You put that in there, all right? Then our plan reviewer will go there and check, okay? Why? Refrigeration equipment works much the same way as an air conditioner, except instead of depositing the heat gain during condensation outside the building, the heat is deposited inside the building. Okay, there's usually no flue from a cooler, a freezer, or a refrigerator to the outside. So you are dumping that heat into the building, and then the mechanical system has to deal with that, and the loads are increased, and we need more air conditioning. Okay. So then we get into fan control. That's a thing. Fans generally the largest energy using component of HVAC systems. Okay. Boom. So the energy code is concerned about this. Okay. Oh, back to this page. Anybody sick of this slide yet? Item number 8, fan motor horsepower and controls. The energy code is deeply concerned about fans and the sizes and etc. All right, moving on to electrical power and lighting. The best is yet to come. So exterior, lighting, we have to develop a budget. And so you get a basic site allowance depending on what kind of zone you're in. And then there are tradable services with this table. The next slide shows non-tradable services. So you kind of get into this whole thing, and there's, increments of watts per square foot, blah, blah, blah. This is what this looks like in the COMcheck screen. It's quite organized, and, putting this in is actually slightly tedious, but, really not that difficult. This is what the report looks like, the exterior lighting compliance certificate. So for instance, the first one is parking lot lights and parking area. And you start off with B quantity, and that is in square feet. We need the parking area, and this engineer for some reason put 11 square feet. Whoa! So this is the site plan. Does this look like 11 square feet of parking to you? No, I don't think so. It identifies the exterior light fixtures and what kind they are, and so that part's good. The sign, by the way, speaking of exemption, the pylon sign, like whatever fast food organization this is, that is exempt. So meanwhile, here's my version of filling out the form completely. As it turns out, there was 13,503 square feet of parking area, not 11. So interestingly, the 1,300 from the table, you add up the wattage of the watts allowed per unit, indicating the tradable and what have you. You add that up to 2095 watts, add that to the 1,300, you have a total budget of 3,395. And interestingly, when down below, because this is a blow up, the total wattage of the fixtures actually complies, okay? 1,032 watts is very good. It's below the 3,395 budget. It would comply, but we are not going to allow that sort of bogus computation on a compliance certificate, okay? So that a rejection note is going to be the COMcheck was incorrectly computed for the allowed exterior lighting power component. Please correct and resubmit, okay? So then let's get to the additional efficiency package options. So this is where it's called out in the code. There's 6 of them. You need a little bit of an upgrade from the basic code. Pick one, pick the easiest. It doesn't matter to us. So here we had, for this particular project, the architect did the envelope, and so he called out the reduced interior lighting power, okay, which is probably the easiest one. Then the engineer of the same project puts in high efficiency HVAC. Uh-oh. Then we go to the inspection checklist, and we get the engineer saying it complies and no comments. And so how in the world could anyone verify that C406 compliance was done? We can't, so it's rejected. Now, interestingly, just so you know, tenant spaces also have to have this section C406 with one of these upgrades, okay? So let's take a look at a tenant space build out, because they are going to take COMchecks, all right? So the good news is if you don't touch the skin or the envelope, then you would not have to submit an envelope compliance certificate. You still have to submit a COMcheck because there's 3 out of 4 certificates, okay? So you would do the interior lighting. Your interior build out is probably going to have lighting, I'm guessing. So meanwhile, this one did not have an additional efficiency package on the front page like they normally do. Then looked at the exterior lighting, okay? Not a word about the additional efficiency package. And then the mechanical compliance certificate, again, nothing, not good, all right? Then we go to the inspection checklist, and there's no comment. Adios. I'm sorry, this build out is toast. Not going to happen. So then we got the next and final is commissioning. Okay. So incredible exceptions. Okay. And that is there's a size threshold. Basically, just for a rule of thumb, buildings, freestanding buildings smaller than a Walgreens, that you've seen all over town would be exempt. Okay. So you do not have to commission small buildings. All right. So, but we're going to see your square footage. We're going to see what the mechanical equipment capacity is. And if it's larger than those, you have to do it. So might as well put it in there. So the commissioning plan has to be developed by a registered design professional. So we need to see something there, not just, Joe Blow. And so there's more to commissioning. There's system adjusting and balancing, air system balancing, blah, blah, blah. As you can see down at the bottom, there's an exception. So, people can take advantage of exceptions. hydronic systems balancing and some exceptions. Notice pump motors of 5 horsepower or less, blah, blah, blah. And so you're just going to have to get into it. I'm sorry. But the preliminary commissioning report has to be completed and certified by the design professional or an approved agency. We need to see that. And the acceptance of the report right here in the code, that the code official receives a letter of transmittal from the building owner acknowledging that the building owner or owner's authorized agent has received the preliminary commissioning report, okay? And this is to be considered acceptable for a final inspection, okay? Adios, it's in the code. We have got to do this as building code enforcement. And hopefully there's nothing unclear about that, okay? So there are documentation requirements. So any project large enough to require commissioning, there's going to be things in the plans we need to see. If not, rejection, okay? We don't have to have the whole plan submitted, but there needs to be documentation in there. The code is clear. So COMcheck covers this. These are, commissioning items right there. Look at those provisions. Provisions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Except, yeah, one of them looks like a duplicate. But anyway, so there they are. If it's blank and there's no comment, we're out of here. All right, so in summary, beginning January 1st, plans submitted with incomplete COMcheck reports will be rejected at pre-screen, okay? If you have enough quantity, then the plan reviewers will judge the quality of the comments in the reports, okay? So requirement will be met is not acceptable. Exemptions and exceptions must be specific, and comments must locate the info in the plans. So those are the 3 items. Requirement will be met is not acceptable actually by itself, okay? We're not going to turn you down because that's in there. But if that's it and you're relying on requirement will be met, that one's not going to be acceptable. Exemptions and exceptions must be specific, not just, there's an exemption. Not going to work. Comments must locate the info in the plans, or probably should have said, be a specific exemption and exception notation. Okay? So that's it. That is, we got, wow, got that done in 50 minutes. Amazing. Let's see, do we have any questions? Let's look at the chat. Any?
Not yet. So for the attendees, if you haven't seen it yet, there's an icon with 2 sort of looking chat messages and a question mark over it. That's where you can enter your questions. All right, our first question here. Can you provide some guidance on what to provide for a shell spec building that does not have an interior build out in the permit drawings? You're on mute, Steve.
There we go.
Should be good.
All right. Yeah, well, I was trying to unmute myself. I couldn't. Good question. I did not exactly outline that, did I? All right. Building shell. All right. Yeah, we must have some sort of process on that. Basically, the building envelope would be required. And there's going to be, remember we talked about roof, walls, those kind of things leaking, so the building envelope is going to need to be completely shown to comply based on the whatever occupancy, whatever you're able to get, whatever you're trying to permit, is going to have to be clearly indicated in the building envelope. There could be, for instance, exterior lighting. If so, then that would have to be submitted. But I also would surmise, but we will come up with something. I will get with my plan review team and in the very near future, and we will have this on the website along with this information, what we specifically need for a shell building. I appreciate that, and I think that's a very good request. It seems like with the shell building, there probably is some shell mechanical information. So I would just offhand be guessing that there would be some information in a mechanical COMcheck. Okay, and interior lighting, it seems like probably not going to see too much there. Potentially, if there's any common space lighting that that the code addresses, that we may want to see some items there. Okay, for instance, you know, there's a code requirement for exit signs. Okay, no more than 5 watts. So that would be an item. I imagine you're going to have exit signs in the corridors and exit ways and what have you, stairwells. So those things could go in. Okay, but you know, I think you want a thorough list of requirements, and we may be able to develop something like that.
All right, another question here. Does the COMcheck need to be in the documents folder if they're in the plans?
Yes. Okay, so that person might have missed that slide. Okay. They can be, it's permissible to be in the drawings. Not a problem with that, but that's not where our permit techs are checking for pre-screen. Pre-screen, who's that, Elmer Fudd? At any rate, no, they need to be also in the folder in Project Docs, energy forms, okay? Must be. Otherwise, you're going to get rejected, and that would be highly inconvenient.
All right, another question here just about if we're going to post the recording and the presentation, and where can you find the COMcheck software program?
Oh, that was a good idea. I wonder why I didn't have a slide on that. Yes, that's the DOE. DOE has a location. You can just Google COMcheck download, and boom, you're going to come up with it. I believe the best. It may be a couple of different sources. I would be very careful of some, you know, third-party looking, you know, weird internet site. I would go through the Department of Energy and follow their links, and they have COMcheck and ResCheck available for free download. Okay, so depending on if you got a residential or a commercial project for energy code compliance, you can download either or both. I have them both on my machine.
That's all the questions we have so far. There's still a few more minutes left if anyone else has any more questions.
I think I'm going to put a, before we upload this to the site, Katie, I think I'm going to go ahead and make an extra slide with that download DOE, you know, COMcheck download site. That's a good idea.
All right, still no more questions. So I think we can wrap up right on time.
Okay, very good. Thanks, everyone.